The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched for nearly a mile in every direction. Its ceiling rose so high that clouds sometimes formed beneath the crystal dome. Floating platforms carried delegates from 1,000 different species, each one representing worlds that had joined the galactic community over millions of years. The hall had witnessed the rise and fall of empires. It had seen treaties signed and wars declared. But today, it would witness something new. Ambassador Wei stood alone on the human platform. She was a small woman with gray hair pulled back in a simple bun. Her formal suit looked plain compared to the flowing robes, shimmering scales, and elaborate ceremonial armor of the alien delegates around her. She kept her hands folded in front of her and her face calm, even though she knew what was coming. The Speaker of the Council was a massive creature called a. It stood 12 feet tall on 6 legs, with a head like a twisted flower and a voice that echoed through the hall without any need for amplification. The had proposed the vote. They had spent months gathering support, and now they were ready to deliver their verdict. The matter before this council is the continued membership of the species known as humans, the Speaker announced. After extensive review of their 12 years of galactic contact, the Council has compiled a list of concerns. Wei listened as the list was read. Reckless expansion. Humans had established colonies faster than any species in recorded history. Cultural contamination. Human music, food, and entertainment had spread to over 200 worlds, disrupting local traditions. Economic disruption. Human merchants undercut established trade routes and ignored century-old pricing agreements. And finally, the charge that made Wei's jaw tighten despite her best efforts to stay composed. An infectious optimism that destabilizes established order, the Speaker intoned. The humans believe that problems can be solved. They believe that change is good. They believe that the future will be better than the past. These beliefs are dangerous. They spread to other species like a disease. They make the young question the wisdom of the old. They make the weak challenge the strong. The vote happened quickly. 847 species voted to ban humanity from galactic space. Only 3 voted against. The decision was final. Humanity would be confined to their home system. Their colonies would be evacuated. Their ships would return to Earth and stay there. A containment field would be activated around their solar system in 30 standard days. The other delegates began to file out of the Great Hall. Some of them looked at Wei with what might have been sympathy. Others looked at her with relief. A few looked at her with something that might have been fear, though she could not understand why. Humanity had only been in space for a few decades. They had no great fleets, no ancient weapons, no powerful allies. They were being sent home like children who had misbehaved at a party. Wei stayed on her platform until the hall was empty. Then she took a deep breath, straightened her jacket, and returned to her ship to deliver the news to Earth. The reaction on Earth was not what the Council expected. There was anger, of course. There were protests and speeches and demands for justice. But beneath the anger, there was something else. Something that the alien observers stationed near the containment field reported with growing confusion over the following months and years. The humans were not giving up. They were not falling into despair. They were not fighting among themselves over who was to blame. They were working. Within the first year, Earth's governments had united in a way they never had before. Old rivalries were set aside. Resources were pooled. The best minds from every nation gathered to solve the problems that the galactic community would no longer help them with. Cut off from alien medicine, human scientists revolutionized their own biotechnology. They cured diseases that had plagued their species for centuries. They extended human and improved human health in ways that would have taken generations under normal circumstances. Access to alien technology, human engineers built their own versions. They reverse-engineered what little alien equipment remained on Earth. They invented new materials, new power sources, new ways of traveling through space. The containment field kept them trapped in their own solar system, but within that system, they built wonders. The most important project was kept secret for the first decade. Deep beneath the surface of Mars, in a facility that appeared on no official records, a team of physicists worked on a problem that the galactic community had declared impossible. The established method of faster-than-light travel required the use of jump gates, massive structures that created tunnels through folded space. Building a jump gate required resources and knowledge that only the Council controlled. Without access to the gate network, humanity was supposed to be trapped forever. But humans had a different idea. They did not try to build a jump gate. Instead, they tried to understand why jump gates worked. They studied the mathematics of folded space. They ran simulations and experiments. They failed thousands of times, but they kept working, kept trying, kept believing that there had to be another way. In the 28th year of the ban, they found it. The technology was called a fold drive. It did not require a gate. It did not require any external infrastructure at all. A ship equipped with a fold drive could travel anywhere in the galaxy, instantly, without using the Council's network. The first test flight was conducted in absolute secrecy. A small ship with a crew of 3 vanished from orbit around Mars and reappeared 1 second later in orbit around a planet called Nexus 7, one of the busiest trade hubs in the galaxy. The crew took photographs, recorded data, and then folded back home before anyone noticed them. The second test flight was not secret at all. A human vessel appeared in the Nexus system without warning. It was not a military ship. It was not armed. It was simply a transport vessel with the flag of Earth painted on its hull. The ship hung in space near the main trade station for exactly 1 hour, long enough for every scanner in the system to confirm that it was real, long enough for the news to spread across the galactic communication network. Then the Council demanded to know how the humans had escaped their containment. They demanded to know what technology the humans had developed. They demanded to know what the humans wanted. Ambassador Wei, now gray-haired and wrinkled but still standing straight and speaking clearly, delivered humanity's response. "We want nothing from you," she said in a recorded message that was broadcast to every world in the galaxy. "We did not come here to threaten you or to demand our rights. We came here to show you something. For 32 years you have tried to contain us. You have tried to limit us. You have tried to stop us from growing and changing and hopping for something better. And for 32 years we have worked. We have learned. We have built. Not because we wanted revenge, but because that is what humans do. We solve problems. We find new ways. We refuse to accept that anything is impossible." She paused and looked directly into the camera. "The containment is over, not because we have broken your laws, but because your laws no longer apply to us. We can go anywhere now. We can do anything. And what we choose to do is this: we choose to help. We choose to build. We choose to hope. You banned us from your galaxy because you were afraid of change. But change is coming whether you want it or not. The only question is whether you will work with us or against us." The message ended. The human ship vanished from the Nexus system as suddenly as it had appeared. And across the galaxy, 1,000 different species began to wonder if everything they had been told about humans was wrong. The Council held an emergency session. Delegates shouted at each other. Accusations flew. Some demanded that humanity be destroyed before they became too powerful. Others pointed out that no one knew where the humans were or how to stop ships that could appear anywhere without warning. But a few delegates, mostly from younger species who had joined the galactic community more recently, asked a different question. What if the humans were right? What if change really was possible? What if the old problems that had plagued the galaxy could actually be solved? The Council had no answer, and for the first time in 10,000 years, the Great Hall fell silent. The galaxy did not change overnight. Ancient institutions do not crumble at the first sign of challenge. The Council continued to meet. The old powers continued to rule. The established order continued to function, at least on the surface. But beneath that surface, cracks had begun to form. The first crack appeared 3 months after the human ship visited the Nexus system. A plague called the Crimson Death had broken out on a planet called Seven. The disease was old and well known. It struck every few centuries and killed millions before burning itself out. The standard response was to quarantine the affected areas and wait for the plague to pass. Medical resources were limited. The Council had priorities. Seven was not important enough to save. The humans disagreed. A medical ship appeared in orbit above Seven without warning. It was not a warship. It carried no weapons. Its hull was painted white with a red cross, an ancient human symbol for healing. The ship broadcast a simple message to the planet below. "We are here to help. We have medicine that can stop the plague. We ask nothing in return." The local government did not know what to do. They had been taught to fear humans. They had been told that humans were dangerous and unpredictable, but their people were dying and the Council had already written them off. They accepted the help. Human doctors landed on Seven and began treating patients. The medicine they brought was unlike anything the planet had seen before. It did not just fight the disease. It taught the patient's own body how to fight. Within weeks, the plague was contained. Within months, it was eradicated. The humans did not stay. They did not ask for payment or political favors. They simply packed up their equipment, returned to their ship, and vanished. The Council issued a formal condemnation. They declared that any species accepting human aid would face sanctions. They deployed patrol fleets to search for human vessels, but the warnings came too late. Word of what happened on Seven spread across the galaxy faster than any official communication. The humans had come to help. The humans had saved millions of lives. The humans had asked for nothing in return, and the Council had tried to stop them. The second crack appeared 6 months later. A group of moons orbiting a gas giant called Prime were experiencing a terrible famine. The agricultural systems that fed the moons had failed due to a combination of outdated technology and political corruption. The Confederacy had requested aid from the Council, but the aid was stuck in bureaucratic delays. People were starving while officials argued about procedures. A convoy of human cargo haulers arrived without announcement. They carried enough grain and preserved food to feed the moons for a year. They distributed the supplies quickly and efficiently, bypassing the corrupt officials who had been hoarding resources. When the Confederacy's leaders demanded to know who had authorized this, the humans simply shrugged. "No one authorized it," the convoy captain said. "We heard people were hungry, so we came. That is all." The Council condemned the humans again. They added economic sanctions to the list of threats, but the people of the moons did not care about sanctions. They cared about the fact that their children were no longer starving. The third crack was the largest. An orbital station complex called Zrest was home to nearly 50,000 people from a dozen different species. The stations were old, built centuries ago and maintained poorly ever since. When a critical support structure failed, the entire complex began to collapse. Emergency teams were dispatched, but the damage was too severe. The Council's rescue services declared the situation impossible. They began preparing evacuation for the survivors they could reach, which was less than a quarter of the total population. Then the human ships arrived. There were 17 of them, ranging from small shuttles to medium-sized transports. They had no military escort. They carried no weapons. But they had something far more valuable. They had engineers who specialized in structural emergencies, pilots who could navigate collapsing debris fields, and doctors who could treat injuries in zero gravity. The rescue operation lasted 43 hours. Human teams cut through twisted metal, stabilized failing sections, and pulled survivors from compartments that the official rescue services had declared unreachable. When it was over, 12,000 people who had been written off as dead were alive and safe on the human ships. The lead pilot was a young woman named Sarah Park. When reporters from across the galaxy asked her why the humans had come, She gave an answer that would be quoted for generations. "Because someone had to," she said simply, "and because we could." The council tried to condemn the humans again, but this time, the condemnation failed. 300 species voted against it. 200 more abstained. The coalition that had banned humanity 32 years earlier was falling apart. A counselor named from a species called the Synthesis Collective gave a speech that was broadcast across the galaxy. Was old even by alien standards, with a body that looked like a tree crossed with a crystal formation, and a voice that rang like bells. "We must ask ourselves a difficult question," said. "What are the humans actually doing? They are not conquering, they are not demanding tribute, they are not building an empire, they are simply helping. They appear where help is needed, they solve problems that we have declared unsolvable, and then they leave. They do not ask for credit, they do not ask for payment, they do not ask for anything except the freedom to help more." Paused and looked around the great hall. "And we are trying to stop them. We are threatening sanctions against species that accept their aid. We are condemning rescue operations that save thousands of lives. We are spending more energy fighting the humans than we have ever spent fighting the actual problems they are solving. I must ask, what does that say about us?" The hall fell silent. No one had an answer. Younger delegates from species that had only recently joined the galactic community began to ask questions that had not been asked in centuries. Why had the humans really been banned? What had the council been so afraid of? The official reasons, reckless expansion and cultural contamination, seemed hollow now. Humans were not expanding. They were not contaminating. They were helping freely and without conditions. The pressure grew until the sealed records of the original vote were finally released, and the truth was almost embarrassing. The humans had not been banned for anything they had done. They had been banned for what they represented. Their optimism was not dangerous because it was false. It was dangerous because it was contagious. The humans genuinely believed that problems could be solved. They genuinely believed that change was possible. They genuinely believed that the future could be better than the past. And if other species started believing the same thing, they might start asking why the old problems still existed. They might start demanding solutions. They might start questioning the authorities that had told them for that nothing could be done. The ban was not about protecting the galaxy from humans. It was about protecting the status from hope. Once the truth was out, everything began to change faster. Young aliens started wearing human symbols, the flag of Earth, images of human cities, quotes from human philosophers. Human music played in spaceport cantinas. Human books were translated into 1,000 alien languages. Human ideas spread like wildfire through a galaxy that had been told for too long that nothing could ever change. And the humans kept helping. They established unofficial embassies on worlds that welcomed them. They trained local doctors and engineers. They shared their technology freely with anyone who asked. They built schools and hospitals and research centers. They asked for nothing in return except the chance to do more. A generation of aliens grew up watching humans choose differently. They grew up watching humans solve problems instead of accepting them. They grew up watching humans help strangers instead of ignoring them. And slowly, quietly, inevitably, they began to believe that maybe they could choose differently too. The cracks in the old order spread wider every day, and the council, for all its power and all its history, could do nothing to stop them. The vote to end the ban was held on a morning that felt like any other. The great hall of the Galactic Council was full, as it always was for major decisions. Floating platforms carried delegates from across the galaxy. The crystal dome overhead let in the light of 3 distant suns. Everything looked the same as it had for thousands of years. But everything had changed. Ambassador Wei stood on the human platform once again. She was 86 years old now. Her hair was white, her face was lined with wrinkles, and she walked with the help of a simple cane. But her eyes were sharp, and her voice was clear, and when she looked around the great hall, she saw something that would have been impossible to imagine 32 years earlier. Friends, allies, species that had reached out to humanity during the long years of exile, species that had accepted human help and offered friendship in return, species that had learned to hope again because humans had shown them how. The Speaker of the Council, a new one now, called the vote with a tone that suggested this was merely a formality. And in many ways it was. The ban had been meaningless for years. Humans were everywhere. They sat on advisory boards and taught at universities. They ran humanitarian organizations that spanned entire sectors. They had trained doctors and engineers and teachers on hundreds of worlds. The containment field had been shut down a decade ago because maintaining it seemed pointless when human ships could appear anywhere they wanted. The vote passed. 812 species voted to end the ban. 35 abstained. None voted against. The humans were officially welcomed back into the galactic community. Wei smiled as the results were announced. She had spent most of her life working for this moment. But the smile was not one of triumph. It was one of quiet satisfaction, the kind that comes from seeing a long journey finally reach its destination. After the ceremony, delegates crowded around the human platform to offer congratulations. Wei shook hands and accepted gifts and listened to speeches. But eventually, the crowd thinned, and she found herself standing with an old acquaintance. The counselor who had spoken against the council's condemnations all those years ago had retired from politics long ago, but they had come to witness this moment. Their crystalline body had grown more complex with age, branches spreading in patterns that Wei did not pretend to understand. "You must feel proud," said, their voice still ringing like bells. "Your people have achieved something remarkable." Wei thought about the question for a moment before answering. "Pride is not quite the right word," she said. "Relief maybe, hope. We spent so long being afraid of what might happen, afraid that we would be forgotten, afraid that the galaxy would move on without us. But then we realized something important." What was that? That being afraid was a waste of time. We could not control what the Council did or what the galaxy thought of us. We could only control what we did. So we decided to do something useful. We decided to help wherever we could, solve whatever problems we could, and trust that eventually things would work out. Made a sound that might have been a laugh. And things did work out. They did, not because we were lucky or because we were special. They worked out because enough people decided to believe that they could. That is the only secret humanity ever had. We believed that tomorrow could be better than today, and we were stubborn enough to keep working until it was. The Great Hall was almost empty now. Cleaning drones drifted through the air, collecting debris from the celebration. The light through the crystal dome was shifting as the three suns moved across the sky. Asked the question that many species had wondered about for years. What will your people do now? You have proven yourselves, you have been accepted. You have won every battle that mattered. What comes next? Wei looked out at the empty hall, at the platforms that had carried delegates from 1,000 worlds, at the ceiling that stretched so high that clouds sometimes formed beneath it. "The same thing we have always done," she said. "We will find problems and solve them. We will find people who need help and help them. We will build and teach and explore and hope, not because we expect rewards or recognition, not because we want power or glory, but because that is what humans do. We see something broken and we try to fix it. We see someone suffering and we try to help. We see a challenge and we try to overcome it." She paused and smiled again, the same quiet smile of satisfaction. "The Council banned us because they were afraid of what we represented. They thought our hope was dangerous. They thought our optimism was a threat. And in a way, they were right. Hope is dangerous. Optimism is a threat. Because once people start believing that things can change, they start demanding that things do change. And once enough people demand change, the old ways cannot hold." Was silent for a long moment. Do you think the galaxy is ready for that kind of change? I think the galaxy does not have a choice, Wei said. Change is coming whether anyone is ready or not. The only question is whether we will guide it towards something better or let it happen without direction. Humanity has spent 32 years proving that we know how to build. Now we have the chance to help the whole galaxy build something new. She turned to face directly. The hegemony wars have gone on for 900 years. The blight zones keep spreading. 3 species went extinct last century from conflicts that could have been prevented. These problems seemed impossible for so long that everyone stopped trying to solve them. But they are not impossible. They are just hard. And hard problems are exactly what humans are good at. The last of the light faded from the dome overhead. Stars appeared in the darkening sky, thousands of them, each one representing a world that humanity had been forbidden to visit for 3 decades. Wei looked up at those stars and felt something she had not felt in a long time. Not hope, exactly. Hope was too passive, too much like waiting for something good to happen. What she felt was determination. The certainty that good things could be made to happen if people were willing to work for them. The vote today was not an ending, she said. It was a beginning. Everything that comes next is up to us, all of us, humans and aliens together. We can keep repeating the mistakes of the past, or we can build something new. We can accept the problems that have plagued this galaxy or we can finally solve them. Made the bell-like sound again. You make it sound simple. It is simple, not easy but simple. We just have to keep showing up, keep helping, keep believing that tomorrow can be better than today. That is all, that is everything. The final ceremony was held 1 week later. The council voted unanimously to offer humanity a permanent seat. Wei accepted on behalf of her species. She gave a short speech, thanking the delegates for their trust and promising that humanity would work to earn it every day. But the moment that people remembered was not the speech. It was what happened afterward. A young delegate from one of the member species approached Wei after the ceremony. The delegate was nervous, fumbling with their translator, clearly unsure whether they were allowed to speak to such an important figure. Wei stopped and waited patiently. I just wanted to say, the young delegate managed, that when I was small, my family was on 7 during the plague. The human doctors saved my parents. They saved me. I would not be alive without them. Wei reached out and took the delegate's hand. Then do something good with your life, she said gently. Help someone else the way you were helped. Pass it on. That is how we change the galaxy, not through grand gestures or great speeches, through small acts of kindness repeated over and over until they add up to something that cannot be ignored. The young delegate nodded, eyes bright with something that might have been tears or might have been hope. And Ambassador Wei, who had spent her entire adult life fighting for humanity's place among the stars, smiled one last time. The galaxy had tried to contain them. The galaxy had tried to limit them. The galaxy had tried to stop them from growing and changing and hopping for something better. The galaxy had failed. Not because humans were stronger or smarter or more advanced than anyone else, but because humans refused to give up. Because humans insisted on believing that problems had solutions, that change was possible, that the future could be better than the past. The council had banned humans because they feared what hope could do, and in the end, they had been right to fear it. Hope had broken history wide open, and humanity was just getting started.